Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be continuing our read through of this magazine, Atlas of the Ancient World. Now, for this magazine, I have not read ahead, I've only glanced at the maps. So as you can see by the title, we're going to look at maps of ancient Egypt. Now, here's my thought. Here's the table of contents. We finished chapter 1. Chapter 2 is all Egypt. So I thought, you know what? Why don't we just do the entirety of chapter 2 tonight? So that I don't have like 4 videos in a row about Egypt, So that's what we're going to do. That's what we will do tonight. Let's see, we already did that one and that one. And that's where we left off. Yep, there's a good old Egypt, the kingdoms of the Nile. I was planning on reading this, but this is probably going to be a really long video. So we'll skip this guy. Maybe we'll come back to it if it turns out this wasn't a huge long video, but I have a feeling it will be. I don't know because I haven't read any of this, so let's get into it. Kingdoms of the Nile, Old and Middle Kingdoms. Egypt's Old and Middle Kingdoms spanned some 1,500 years and thousands of square miles of fertile land along the winding Nile River. The first unifying pharaoh, Narmer, united Upper or South and Lower or North Egypt. Successive pharaohs established a capital at Memphis, at the base of the Nile Delta. Pyramids to house royal remains arose nearby at Giza. Later, Middle Kingdom dynasties ventured south of the first cataract of the Nile and conquered most of Nubia. See this beautiful image there. Looks like Horus right there. Oh, this describes the map. Oh, here we go. It says a painted stela from Thebes depicts Hatshepsut and his daughter Shepensis worshipping, it's Ra Harakti, a combination of the gods Ra and Horus. I was close. Ra and Horus here, all golden and bird-headed, or eagle-headed, I suppose. There's the pharaoh, I suppose, and his daughter. Interesting. Egyptian art's so cool. It's so neat how Egyptian art, I wonder if it'll talk about this later, but Egyptian art stayed like this for thousands of years. It didn't evolve, except for one brief exception, which I wonder if it'll mention it. So I'll talk about it later. But then after that, pharaoh went back to this style. Pretty unique, I think. It's usually art evolves and changes throughout time, but in Egypt it didn't. So let's actually read this about the map before we explore it. It says, Egypt's old kingdom, shaded in orange, extended from the Mediterranean to the first cataract of the Nile. Expansion-minded pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom, outlined in gold, took over lands as far south as the second cataract in Nubia. Semitic conquerors, the Hyksos, seized the Nile Delta during their century-long rule, outlined in green. Alright, so the Old Kingdom it says orange, but it looks more brown to me. I don't know, I guess that's a shade of orange. But all throughout the delta here of the Nile River, and then up the Nile River, even though we're going south, there's Thebes right there, all the way to the first cataract, which is basically kind of a rocky, rapid impasse where they could not sail past that. So that's where it stopped. And we can see Memphis there. It says Memphis, the Old Kingdom capital, was strategically located at the mouth of the Nile Delta. And there's Giza right there. And we look at the gold as the Middle Kingdom. So it encompasses all of this, of course, and goes further south into Lower Nubia toward the second cataract. It says, during the Middle Kingdom period, Imhotep II occupied Nubia down to the second cataract of the Nile. But we can also see little oases here, Baharia Oasis, Dakhla Oasis, and Karga Oasis there, along with this area here on the Red Sea. And this little bit of Sinai, which actually is part of Lower Egypt as well, across the Suez Gulf. There's no canal there yet. And then the Hyksos Kingdom, which is 1650 to 1550 BCE, is all in green. So it includes Jerusalem and the Dead Sea there, all of the Sinai, all the way down here, even these little islands there. Then all of this area of the Nile Delta, along the coast, all the way up past Gaza, up toward, it looks like Joppa. That must be Jaffa today, right? That was the Hyksos territory. It shows pyramids on here. I see them right here. Bunch of little pyramids there. And what else? Cataracts, marked by little wavy lines, but I don't know. First cataracts right there, but I don't see no wavy lines. Oh, I guess that's that right there. Elephantine is on top of it, that's why. But there's cataract, and then we have the third, the fourth, the fifth. There's Meroe way down there in Kush. And then, of course, the present day coastline is in a dotted line, because you can see that it's a bit different up here now. The coastline of the Nile Delta has changed dramatically since ancient times. Even from this time, it would go on to change and evolve, and parts of Alexandria underwater. But I think we're going to talk about that later, so I'll stop myself. Here's Imhotep. Imhotep, pictured here as a bronze votive offering, who served as chief counselor to King Djoser of Egypt's third dynasty, was a man of many talents. Trained as a scribe, he won renown as a scholar, priest, and physician. But he's best remembered as the architect of Djoser's magnificent tomb, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara, completed around 2600 BCE. Earlier royal tombs had been low structures made of mud brick. This was Egypt's first pyramid. Imhotep designed a stone structure with 6 levels, each narrower than the one below. As one inscription described the building, it was a staircase for the king, so that his spirit may mount up to heaven thereby. Later Egyptian architects refined Imhotep's design by creating pyramids with smooth sides. So great was Imhotep's reputation as a physician and wonder worker that he was deified in later times and worshipped at temples, an extraordinary honor for an Egyptian who was not of royal blood. So here he is, sitting here all bald, but that was the style back then, having shaved heads, shaved bodies, I guess. Sitting, looks like he's got some plants on his lap there. Sitting in this nice chair, you can see some hieroglyphs down here. It says, "Those who build tombs, their places are gone. What has become of them?" Harper's Song, Tomb of Intef. Oh, that's interesting. And then, of course, we move on to the pyramids at Giza. More than 100 pyramids dot the Egyptian landscape, but 3 iconic structures stand in for all the rest. The pyramids at Giza, located near the old kingdom capital of Memphis, consist of the Great Pyramid built for King Khufu, the Middle Pyramid of Khafre, and the southernmost and smallest built for Menkori. Time and thievery have stripped the pyramids of their outermost layer of smooth limestone, but they were once among the largest buildings ever constructed. The Great Pyramid stone alone, let me get closer here. The Great Pyramid alone, built around 2560 BCE, contains more than 2 million stone blocks, weighing on average about 2.5 tons each, and each brought in from quarries as far away as 500 miles. Tens of thousands of conscripted workers labored for 2 decades to build Khufu's final resting place. Teams of workers with names such as Victorious Gang, nice, left their titles inscribed on the blocks. Khufu's mummy and any other treasures were long ago plundered by grave robbers. The Victorious Gang. Yeah. Sounds good. I like it. But yeah, all the pyramids here. There's the Great Pyramid. And You can see the smaller pyramids here for the queens. Beautiful. So neat. The desert sands. Nice picture of someone riding a camel there in the foreground. So beautiful. So neat. Someday I'll go see them. Moving on to the New Kingdom. Let's see what this is. The New Kingdom was a time of power, wealth, and shifting allegiances. The era began in triumph as Ahmose I drove out the invading Hyksos, then reasserted Egyptian control over Nubia. Later, warlike pharaohs briefly extended Egypt's borders up the Mediterranean coast into Syria. Although rulers of the New Kingdom boasted that all lands were subject to them, they were largely content with collecting tribute from their neighbors rather than ruling them outright. Let's read the caption. It says, almost 100 years after Ahmose I's victories, New Kingdom Pharaoh Thutmose III controlled lands as far south as the Nile's fourth cataract, while consolidating alliances with the Hittites and Mitanni in Syria. Today, the New Kingdom is perhaps best known for its legendary young pharaoh Tutankhamun. His time in power was brief, but his tomb in the Valley of the Kings near Thebes yielded extraordinary treasures, including a gold funerary mask. Yeah, we covered Cairo a few weeks ago on the channel, and we looked at King Tut's exhibit in the Egyptian Museum and talked about him a bit, how he was hastily buried because he died very suddenly, unexpectedly. So his tomb wasn't as elaborately constructed as the other pharaohs. So it was basically hidden away from the grave robbers. They just didn't find it. So pretty. So shiny. Imagine all the treasures that are lost. There's so many pharaohs that had probably even more elaborate funerary masks, right? Goodness. Let's look at the map of the New Kingdom here. Regions under Thutmose III from 1479 to 1425 BCE is in this tan color. So let's start up here in Syria. There's Damascus there, Sidon and Tyre in Lebanon today, all the way down the Levant. There's the Dead Sea again. Into the Sinai. We've got this town right here on the Gulf of Aqaba. And then across the Delta, of course. And then down the Nile, or up the Nile, I mean, because if you didn't know, the Nile flows this way. So this is the upper Nile, this is the lower Nile. But let's paint all the way down the New Kingdom. There's Thebes, first cataract, lower Nubia. There's the second cataract, and upper Nubia. Down past the third cataract, there's Napata, Kush, the fourth cataract. Hope you can see. Okay, good. Let's go the other way now. Up. Painting down the Nile. Down the Nile. Then all of this as well. Regions of contact are in tan. So, you can see out here. And then all along the eastern desert here, there's Punt, or where we think Punt might have been. All past down here, then all across the desert and along the coast. Can you see? There we go. Across the desert, you can see the oases there. Two more pyramids are little white triangles there. Two more pyramids, because that's the Valley of the Kings right there. They didn't build pyramids at that time because they kept getting robbed. So they started building them underground to protect them. Forts and garrisons are white squares or clear squares. I see them down here in Upper Nubia. This one right here in Lower Nubia. And we've got, I'm sure there's some up here in Syria, right? I don't see any. Oh no, right here. In Megiddo. The cataracts we already saw, and the present-day coastline. Excellent. Very interesting time anyway. preparing for a heavenly journey. Mummification was not performed to comfort the family and friends of the deceased, as embalmers do today when they preserve a body for viewing and burial. Its purpose was to provide a lasting home for the immortal soul of the deceased. Mummification was a sacred task, performed by priests who first removed the perishable internal organs and placed them in vessels called canopic jars, which we'll look at here, that would be buried with the mummy. They then dried and preserved the body using a salt called natron, swathed it in fragrant oil, coated it with resin, and wrapped it in linen. Coffins, like the ones we see up there, and the walls of tombs were inscribed with spells or sacred texts, which helped ensure that the deceased would achieve immortality and sail across heaven in spirit. So here's the tops of the jars where they would store the organs that they felt were the most important. Very famously, they yanked the brain out the nose and just tossed it because they thought that the brain was just junk, I guess, and that the heart functioned as we know the brain does today. So they preserved the heart in jars like these. And then look at these tombs here. Very cool. Very eerie, isn't it? Goodness, you think about how long these lasted underground, preserved. All this work that they did to preserve these bodies, to make sure they made it to the afterlife safely. So interesting, so elaborate. Amazing. Let's read about Hatshepsut. The most important women in the imperial family were the king's mother, who might serve as regent if he succeeded his father as a boy, and the king's principal wife. One Egyptian queen who outlived her husband and became regent, Hatshepsut, defied tradition by remaining in power long after the rightful heir came of age. Hatshepsut, which is depicted below with the lion's mane and pharaoh's beard, was the daughter of King Thutmose I, who did much to expand the Egyptian empire, and she became the principal wife of King Thutmose II, her half-brother. She had no prince by her husband's brother, and his young heir, Thutmose III, was the son of a secondary wife. To secure her legitimacy in a society that assigned proper rule to males, during her regency, Hatshepsut took the title king and had herself portrayed as pharaoh, adopting all the emblems and titles associated with kingship, except the label Mighty Bull. When Hatshepsut died, Thutmose III emerged from her shadow. As she built a huge elaborate tomb, she left quite a legacy, and her heir did everything he could to erase her from history. Pretty remarkable. And she's always depicted with the beard and everything, because she was king of Egypt, Pharaoh. No one rebels against me in all lands. All foreign lands are my subjects. Inscription of King Hatshepsut at Karnak. She was a very interesting character. Cleopatra's Egypt. How many more pages are there? Oh, this is the last page. Oh, this isn't very long at all. I thought this would take like an hour. Goodness. I guess we will go back and read that first page, but let's read about Cleopatra first. In the final centuries BCE, invaders such as the Cushites and Macedonians gained control of Egypt, although Egyptian rulers retained traditional titles. Cleopatra VII, who ruled from 69 to 30 BCE, a descendant of Greek rulers, took the throne at age 18. Liaisons with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony kept her in power for a time as the Romans moved in, but after Octavian defeated Antony at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, Cleopatra died by suicide, and Egypt became a Roman province. Let's see what this says. Neighbors and rivals. Egypt in its waning years was more conquered than conqueror. During the New Kingdom, it took over its southern neighbor Nubia, also known as Kush. When political turmoil later gripped Egypt, the Nubians returned the favor and marched in and ruled, until the Assyrians pushed them back south in the 7th century BCE. By the 4th century BCE, Greeks had colonized Egypt, spawning dynasties that concluded with the brilliant young ruler Cleopatra, who's depicted here. Now, very famously, there is no depiction of Cleopatra from her time that survives today. Surely there were, but none of them have survived to this day. So we don't actually know what she looked like. But 2, she was always described as this great beauty, right? So she could have had dark skin. She could have had light skin because she was Greek, but maybe she had darker skin after being born and raised in Egypt, She could have had blonde hair. She could have had dark hair. The shape of her nose is always in question. She was more Greek or Egyptian looking, or in those days the pharaohs still married their sisters, so she was severely inbred. But we don't know how she would have looked. We can only guess. But this is really nice, isn't it? She looks beautiful here with her servants here helping her, looking like she's ready to have like a bath or something, or a dip in this pool. A dip in the Nile, maybe. It looks like a barge or something right there. A canopy back there to enjoy the nice day. Big palm trees and sunsets. This beautiful carpet. Queen Cleopatra. What an enigma. Let's see this map. So we have ruins shown by these little dots. Let's look at the ruins here. I can see Abu Simbel. There's Primus, Qasr Ibrim right there. There's Kerma, Osemna, Sai, Sidenga, Kawa. I haven't heard of most of these. There's Napata, Meroe. See, there's Khartoum, but that's a normal city today. Let's see, where's some more? Let's look up here. There's Karnak, we just read about in Thebes. Jedni, Kumun, and Memphis. Sais. And then up here there's, how do you say that? Elteca? Interesting. There's lots of things happening on this map. Let's see what they are. Extent of Egyptian Empire during the New Kingdom is this black dotted line. So let's trace that all across the desert here, following the Nile, up through Nubia, up to the Red Sea. And then it looks like we have some area in the Sinai and Levant as well, up across here. Right, so that was the extent during the New Kingdom. Extents during the Kushite or Nubian Empire during the 25th dynasty is this red dotted line. So they rose up and took over Egypt and conquered all of this here. What is that? That's later. Okay. All of this here. So their territory and the Egyptian territory. And it looks like also this territory up here, but stopping right there. The Kushite heartland is right here. This solid area around Nubia. There's Meroe, Napata, Kerma. A traditional boundary between Egypt and Nubia is this right here. So this was Egypt. This was Nubia. Now what's happening up there? See this big arrow. Assyrian advances against the 25th dynasty, come through here, and then boom, I guess. Makes sense. From far away, this looks like it said Algerian, and I was about to be like, wiggity what? No, it's not. Assyrian. Not just, no. Algeria does not quite exist yet, not in the way it does today. Bam, big green Nile Delta. All along the Nile here, all green up to Aswan. Which today there's Lake Nasser. The Aswan High Dam is right there. And what else? You see the Meroe Dam down there. And then modern cities, there's Cairo. We already looked at Khartoum. And Jerusalem's up there. Yeah, you can see the modern borders as well. There's the border with Sudan and Egypt and Libya over here. And Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Israel, and Palestinian, Gaza right there. Yep. Good map. We can even see the Suez Canal right there. Alright, let's go back and read this first part, but how about this? Let's whisper it to end the video. Let's whisper it. The kingdoms of the Nile. Unlike Mesopotamia with its fast-growing cities, Egypt 5,000 years ago was a land of villages around the bountiful Nile River. Each summer, monsoon rains in the highlands of East Africa far to the south swelled the north-flowing Nile and flooded the surrounding countryside, leaving a rich layer of silt that replenished the fields. The river also served as an artery for communication among settlements and helped unify the country. Around 3000 BCE, a king from Upper Egypt, which was in the south upstream along the Nile, led forces into the Nile Delta and conquered Lower Egypt to the north. Several rulers may have led a gradual consolidation, but King Narmer claims the title of first ruler of a united Egypt, with a capital at the southern end of the delta. His reign ushered in the first of more than 30 dynasties that would rule the country for the next 3,000 years. But the long issues from the earth and comes to keep Egypt alive. That was a hymn to the Nile. So let's end it there. Thank you so much for watching. Let's peek and see what's next after Egypt. I don't even